So today we're going to have a little talk about the Fitrah, or rather the understanding of the Fitrah.
Okay.
Because this is one of those things that are maybe not so well understood with most people.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, first of all, many people just don't think about it. Okay?
Why?
I don't know what to say. Maybe because they feel it's something that's hard to attain, or something that's, it's just like that thing, most people have some limitations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing that you hear people say a lot is nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's just like, well, I can never be perfect, so never mind. It's like, it's an excuse. And even though, yes, maybe we cannot be perfect, but that doesn't mean we cannot be 99% perfect, or 90 or 75% perfect. Why do we have to, use that as an excuse to stay with like 20%?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, especially when it comes to the spiritual side of things with you people, I would say, in general, not just among Muslims, but, because I come from a Christian country, meaning that just like we consider like Morocco or Indonesia like a Muslim country, because that's the majority of the religion. And in Denmark also we consider it a Christian country because that's the majority of religion. You have hundreds and hundreds of churches. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many masjid you can find, but it's not many. So, but the thing is, that doesn't mean that people are very religious, right? I mean, most Danes, they drink quite a lot, and there's a lot of other things, you could say that it's not really, good for the religion. Mm-hmm. And the same thing here in Indonesia, you have a lot of Muslims, but that doesn't mean that they are, good Muslims, right? Yeah. So I believe that we have a lot, to improve when it comes to religion. And you could say that maybe the thing that makes people not able to really be so serious, or maybe so good putting their effort into their religion, is the pragmatic, or dogmatic, I should say. The dogmatic, that means that like the rules and the regulations, this is a sin, this is good to do, all of those things. And, first of all, that is not as difficult as people might think. But if they're not connected to the Fitrah, it doesn't come naturally.
Okay.
Right? Like, for example, excuse me, like, you have some people, if they're home, they don't wear hijab. Mm-hmm. Like women, for example. Mm-hmm. When they go out, they put it on, right? And then I've come across women who was like, if they're home, they're not wearing hijab. And then there's a visitor, a male visitor, not family or not related to them in any way, so they should technically wear hijab, but they don't bother.
Because they're home.
Yeah, because they're home. They they kind of feel like, oh yeah, it's like, oh well, I'm at home, so I shouldn't be, have to do it. Or maybe, maybe not so much the hijab, but just the way we behave. Yeah. We think that we can get away with things when nobody's watching, but you are doing this because Allah is watching, Allah is knowing whatever we are doing. And the effort we put into this awareness of how to behave, even when you are alone, well, technically you are never alone because Allah is always present in a sense. But even when we are alone, we should be, careful or be aware and behave. We shouldn't just say, oh, nobody's knowing what I'm doing, I can just do whatever I want. This is the wrong way. Mm-hmm. So by connecting to the Fitrah, you are attaining this taqwa, right, and ihsan. You know, those two things are very similar in some way. You could say that the taqwa is more like, some people call it God-fearing, like you are, worried that, oh, if I do something wrong, Allah will punish me, I'd rather not. And that's good enough. But ihsan is not just fearing, right, but seeking to please Allah, to actually, and not like you are like, oh, now I'm doing something, score 1 for me, next time score 2, score 3,
Yeah.
It should be rather that when we are doing something, it should be because it's good for us, not because we keep scores. How many times did I fast? How I fast Monday and Thursday? And yes, even though you might not let people know, right? There is a kind of hypocrisy in yourself, right? the hypocrisy that, or maybe you can call it an arrogance even, that you are counting on something, and you are using that to make yourself do something, right? And unfortunately, the majority of people will be doing something because it's put on their scoreboard, right? Not because it comes naturally to them, right? And it's a very difficult thing to do because we have levels. We have levels, so we have this way that we say that when you give, you should give so the left hand does not know when the right hand is giving, because you give with your right hand, obviously. And that, of course, people will interpret as, excuse me, that when you're giving something, you should keep it secret. But the fact is, there's a deeper meaning to that. And the deeper meaning is that you should give it without thinking too much about it. Yeah. It shouldn't be something that you do because you're like, aha, I give something, this is it's give me some rewards, you shouldn't be, it should be something natural, all right? And how you're being good naturally is in the Fitrah, all right? You can say that all the good things in a person, right, all the good things is from the Fitrah, and all the bad things is from that awareness. And this is that awareness that when we look back to Adam and Hawa when they were in paradise, after they were just created, and Allah warned them, not to trust Satan, and then, because, he's your enemy. And that's clearly now, we know that, of course, and they just got tempted because they thought, okay, we can just, eat of the fruit of that tree, right? But what happened was that they got an awareness. And it doesn't really matter if there was a tree or whether that was symbolic, right? Because we consider that like the fruits, eating the fruit of knowledge, right, is increasing your awareness. So the more you have, knowledge, the more you consider everything, right?
Yeah.
So they were innocent, they were pure, and because they have considerations about that knowledge. Oops, somebody is being naughty out there. So you have that awareness that you consider, right? It's very similar with what's going on today with the consumerism. Like, I have a very good example. When I was living in Africa, I was walking around quite a lot. I was, I didn't have a vehicle, so I was walking, and people thought I was a little bit crazy because, this white man just walking everywhere. But anyway, I remember that I had some friends who were, quite poor, very simple lifestyle, and from my Danish background, I drink Coca-Cola or whatever drinks that was available, and even cold, right, which is bad for you actually. But this was like almost 30 years ago. So anyway, so often I would offer my friend, if I was walking with one of those guys, oh, you want to, cold Coke. Most of the time they refused.
Interesting.
And because it was not their habit to do so, right? And I could see how they were, those who refused compared to those who were, sure, they were understanding that they didn't want to get the taste of it.
Oh, mashallah.
Yeah, it's amazing. They didn't want to get the taste of, okay, now, because maybe I won't be around later on, and then you'll be like, oh, that's another luxury for me that I have to find money. You don't need Coca-Cola. You don't need all of these. Most of the things we need in life, we don't need. Just like handphones that are 10 times more advanced than we actually can use. I mean, most people, they only use like 5 to 10% of the functions of a handphone.
Yeah.
And still they want a later model, which is completely ridiculous. So that awareness that he refused, my friend there, by saying, no, I don't want, right, I don't want to, taste that sweet Coca-Cola. Water is better, right? And the fact that it's cooling down, right? The fact is it doesn't work because it's better to avoid cold drinks, especially when it's hot.
Yeah.
So this is a good example of that awareness and that Fitrah mentality, right? And the fact is, while I was there in West Africa, there, it was so much in the culture that there was a lot of Fitrah, how people were behaving, how people were interacting. It was probably even more so than Morocco, for example. Morocco is a very modern country, although it has good traditions and a lot of it's very impressive. But if you should consider that the comparison between like West African countries I was in and Morocco and Indonesia, you could see how those people who live simply in West Africa, they were closer to the Fitrah, and in Morocco is a little bit further away, and Indonesia is even further away than that. It's really far from the Fitrah, the culture, right? For example, the inquisitive, the thing that everybody wants to know everybody's business.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have enough in your own business. You should mind your business, because how you have time to know what everybody else is doing, how you have time for that when you can't even perform your own life properly. You should focus on that. You shouldn't have time to, gossip and gossip about your neighbors or whatever happens in the world. So there's so much, Indonesia is one, when it comes to Facebook and Instagram and those things, Indonesia is per million, they have the largest amount of followers of these media, social media, right? And it's sad because people they change the way they're thinking in a very negative way, and they become more addicted to it, and therefore also more to consumerism.
Yes.
For those people who are making big business, those really big businesses, they are so happy for the internet because it's so easy. You cannot even, you don't have to go outside your house. You're being influenced to what to buy. Now everything is being done online. So, if you get good things, that's great. But if you want to shop healthy food, it's not so much available online, right?
Yeah.
If you want to have a lot of negative things that makes you addicted and make you more lazy, all those are available online, right? So anyway, back to the Fitrah.
Yes.
So they were having this state of Fitrah, which is the natural. That's how they are created, and they got the awareness, and then from there they were told, "You gotta get out of here," because they can't fit. You have to get rid of this, unnatural state. If you want to be in a natural place, you have to be natural. If you're not natural in a natural place, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And now what we are doing here in this dunya here, which everything is created according to their fitrah, except we go away from it, right? And the fact is, the moment you're born, right, you are born in the fitrah, right? And you could say a newborn baby, the first seconds that is, out, right, is maybe 100% fitrah, right? And then how we are dealing with the baby will change that step by step until it's a toddler. Suddenly the toddler is, nagging and whiny, and that's not even in the fitrah, right? We are spoiling our children, and we're spoiling each other by going away from that. So this is something that is extremely important to understand, right? And also, you could say that the way we look at things today is we are looking at the fitrah and natural as old-fashioned or backwards, right? Many times they are like, people they want to have it as modern, as new. Everything has to be new and modern, right? And as advanced as possible. And the fact is, there's nothing more destructive in this world that we are living in today than that need for always, changing things to more advanced. And we are we have a sea of garbage in the oceans that is coming from this consumer industry. We have mountains of electronic garbage, right? They are selling every year. They are selling tens of millions of handphones, right? They are selling millions of cameras, of laptops, of different computer parts, screens, all of these things, because as soon as you have a new type of screen, the old one is obsolete, and nobody wants it, right? And it just doesn't disappear, right? It's a terrible thing, and that is destroying our soul, right? And it's destroying the soul, so to speak, of the planet, right? So you could say, what can we do? You can not do anything really, because how are you going to stop this trend, right? But I believe that you should just focus on yourself. It's always a good start, right? People are complaining about many situations, not just the environment being destroyed, but also the religion. Many people are talking about how people are not good in their religion and so on. And there's nothing we can do. But that's defeatist. That's completely wrong to think like that. Of course, you should be aware things are not going the right way, but if you can't do anything, at least you can do something to change yourself, because we need more good examples, right? So if you start with yourself, maybe you can influence family members, and they influence, people they work with, people they're friends with, and so on and so on, right? It's a very powerful thing to have good examples. And as a Muslim, we have the best example in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you can see most of our religion is based on his example, right? So this just shows us that this is the way to do things, right? He started at the time with in Mecca, right? And it was very few followers, and they were even being persecuted and tortured and abused in many ways. But it didn't stop them, right? It's very powerful.
Yeah.
And so that means that we have to consider really working on ourselves. You can say the biggest mission in your life is improving yourself.
Yeah.
It should be your number one priority, right? And yes, if you go outside your house and you see some garbage, yeah, you can pick it up and put it in the correct place.
Yeah.
But, what about the garbage that we have inside,
Yeah.
right? We need to change that as well.
Oh, can I ask something?
Yes.
Yesterday we were talking about the Fitrah state, and then you are explaining very beautifully that it's a natural state that we were born, that you were mentioning already. And then what is the example of it in, like, we call that, you were giving example of how the animal behaving, and then how we are, further from it, and all the implication of that.
Yes. Well, as I mentioned, when excuse me. So when Adam and Eva was expelled from paradise, and they were put on this earth, which, by the way, is all in the Fitrah. Everything in the universe is a Fitrah, right? Or you can say a Fitrah is like the way something is.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that a chicken is behaving in a certain way, right? It might be one kind of chicken might be a little bit different from another kind of chicken in terms of how it looks, right? But if you have a specific breed of chicken, you can have 100 of them, and they will be behaving pretty much identical. So that's how they are in their Fitrah. Just like you have a tiger, you have a zebra, you have all of these animals, and it's always in the Fitrah. Okay, it has a range of patterns on how it behaves, how it eats, how it sleeps, and all of those things. And it's a natural thing, and it's also